A common theme in the winter with edible acres is to focus on creating infrastructure and things that allow me to get some good physical activity that don't require digging. And we talked about making mason bee homes. I'll do a video at some point about bird houses. But right now the main focus, as it's freezing cold and snowy out, is creating these high-value functional elements for the garden. In this case, it's black locust stakes that are going to be used for trellising for tomatoes, setting up temporary fencing, putting fences around tree crops, all those sorts of things. In this video, I'm going to step you through a very low-tech process for creating staves just like this. In this case, we're doing it with black locust, but I'd encourage, if what you have is oak, use oak. If what you have is maple, use maple. Black locust is great because it's very strong, very rot resistant. And I'll step you through the process from the tree being dropped to the ground through hand splitting with very basic tools into staves to actually sharpening and turning them into very high value stakes that can be used in the garden. So stick with us. So the first order of business, if I want to make these stakes, is to harvest them. And I'm in the middle of the locust grove that I manage on a friend's property, harvesting trees that are leaning or on the older side but still have really good straight runs in them. And what I'm looking for when I fell these trees are good clean straight runs of 4 feet or 6 feet. You can make it whatever length is appropriate for what you're doing. Most of what I'm generating are 6 feet. I really like that length. And I'm splitting them out with hand tools, which I'm showing here. And I'll encourage you to check out this link to look at a more thorough description of riving or splitting posts with an axe, a maul, and splitting wedges, all of which you can get at garage sales or reuse centers. There's no special equipment. Once they're split out enough, I can extract them with a sled. Since there's enough snow, I'm doing that. And I'm getting them just into movable pieces. And once I get them home, I can unload them from the truck and split them down further using the same basic technique with the axe, the maul, and the wedges. And in this case, you can see I'm splitting them down. I'm letting them be variable widths and density. I can use them for different things. So here's one that's relatively skinny. As locust, it's still going to be really strong. And here's one that's a little bit fatter. So I can use that for a corner post for small fencing. These are great because they last an incredibly long time, but they can be pulled out of the ground and repurposed later on, which is really exciting. Once I have them split to the size that I want, it's then time to get the bark off and sharpen them. Now, of course, I could show you how to do that with tools like a draw knife and a froe, but the likelihood is, if you're just getting into this, you don't have these tools. So maybe you don't want to invest in them. Maybe you do later on. That's great. Watch some videos on how to use them. I'm just going to show you how I do it with a hatchet. Something you can get online, local hardware store. This is about $25 for a Fiskars hatchet. You just want a nice sharp hatchet. So I'm going to set up a shot here and show you how I peel the bark and get them sharpened. So in my shop, what I'm using is just a stump. In this case, it's a spruce stump that happens to have a little spur attached. It's kind of nice to have an extra nugget here to help support the wood. You could always hammer in something or screw in a board to support it. And with my nice sharp hatchet, or medium sharp hatchet, first order business is to take this bark off. And so what I like to do, just bear with me, you won't see my head, but who cares, is I'll take my post, get it up on my work surface, clean it off so it's nice and ready to go, put it in so it's supported, and with my hatchet I'm taking these glancing blows just to get into the bark. What you'll find is if it's green wood, once you get under the bark, in between the bark and the sapwood, it tends to peel a bit more. So you can use that to your advantage to kind of slide through, almost like you're peeling potatoes, but with a hatchet. You get the idea. And once I get to a joint where it's holding back, I can twist a little, and that helps knock it off. And once I get to the end here, I'll pause. I'm basically just going to strip it off the bulk of this first. Let me do the rest of that with a time lapse so you don't have to hear me the whole time. So the process for me to sharpen this, I have to take a fair amount of wood off. And so the trick that I use, and you'll see this if you watch other videos where people chop wood, rather than trying to cut all of it off in one big blow, what I do is take little bites up the line and then strike that off. Let me show you. Little bites, that releases the wood a bit, and then more vertical strikes knock that off. So again, little chips up the line and then back down. Little chip at a more exaggerated angle, and then stood up to cut that off. So let me do a little more and you can just watch for a minute. Then I try to clean up the taper, up the line a little bit, because ideally when I go to slam this into the ground with a sledgehammer, it's going in 1.5 or almost 2 feet. And these real wide transitions make it a little harder to drive into soil. So I'll take a moment, smooth all that out. Now the fact that I'm processing, this is heartwood black locust. If it takes me 10 minutes to make this steak, it's worthwhile. This steak very likely could be useful for the rest of my adult life, and the rest of my geriatric life as well. So a few extra minutes now to get it really clean, really nice, is worth my while. At least 20 years in the ground, if not 30 or 40, if it's good heartwood black locust. You'll notice I finish it off by turning that last tip until I get a decent point. I'm not trying to drive this through the heart of a vampire, just into garden soil. That should be good enough. The last bit is to take the end that I drive, and what I like to do is chamfer the corners, round over the corners a bit, so a sledgehammer, if it catches the edge, won't shear off pieces of wood. So let me do that too. Same idea, much smaller bites. Not a big deal, just a little touch. That helps round it over, so when it goes to get driven, it's sturdier. Last order of business, completely optional, is to drill holes every foot or so, so once this is pounded in the ground, it's easy to run wire through it to twist tie off onto fencing or to run planes of wire, but you could just as easily take your wire and draw it taut around the outside. I'll show you. Here's a completely finished steak. I measured down 6 inches from the top and drilled a little hole straight through every foot for the first, second, third, and fourth foot. If I do this with all the ones that are driven in, I can run wires through them and around. When you go through and pull with your full weight, you can really get them tight. Not critical, but highly recommended. So it's a fair bit of physical work, for sure. And you can make the argument, oh heck, I can just go down to Tractor Supply and buy tea steaks for $3 or $4 a piece. Go ahead. But to me, when the weather is like that outside, it's basically windy and snowy, this is great exercise. I can get about 50, if not 60 or more of these 6-foot long stakes from one black locust tree using tools that I already have. Basically, so far, what we've engaged with is a stump and a hatchet to take these split pieces, once we've gotten them past splitting down from the tree, which is just a maul, an axe, and some old wedges. You can look on Craigslist or yard sales, maybe in somebody's old barn. Very likely you can do this for $0, and you can generate garden stakes that are the dimensions you want, that are as sturdy as you need, that can be used for a very long time, and perhaps even sell them. I could sell these for a few dollars a piece and it would be very worth my while. So, food for thought, neat activities in the winter, and by all means look up videos of shave horses and draw knife and how to use a froe, and think about what the next level could be. I'll do a video if people are interested, but this is a $1 shave horse that I built that lets me really elegantly clean the edges with the draw knife, but it is not necessary, so I don't want to make you think you have to use that. Anyway, you could kill some 10,000 foot tall vampires with these, or grow some beefsteak tomatoes. Either way, you've got the technology to do both now. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you make some great steaks.